Another exciting day today, guys. I got most of what I said I was going to do yesterday done today, so I'll give you a quick look. I'm still waiting on some parts, and I still have to track down some parts, but I'll give you a bit of a look what I've done. And I do apologise if the lighting's bad. My flashlight has actually died on me, but I do have the my mobile phone here. It's got a pretty good torch on it. So just let me set this up, and we'll get something happening. All right, there we go. Got the control unit in, no problem. As you can see there, I took a little bit more out of that heater box, and that chamber there is only for the floor. It doesn't affect any other part of the unit whatsoever. So, you know, that's got plenty of clearance now. I took this large cable off that fresh air recycle switch, which would have went to this white fan box originally, and I've used that on this side. It's a little long, but everything works perfect. I hope you can see this. I'll start moving everything. There we go. So that's coming out of the dashboard at your face and the windscreen. That's coming out of the floor and at your face. That's coming out at the floor, and this is coming out at the windscreen and the floor. So I've got the four I need. So that's all gone in there really well. The cables, even though the cable's a bit long there, you don't see it when the dash panel's on. As you can see on this duct, I have epoxied a piece over the top of that and sealed that off. Those two flaps that I originally cut for the back vent, ended up using those on the front here to fasten this duct to the heater box. So they didn't go to waste either. All these bands, as I said, I was going to, sorry for the lighting, guys. I was going to put self-tappers in there, in those bands, and then screw it into the body. I can lift that entire unit out as one piece now, and although I've got two jack stands there, it actually balances on one. So it's all nice and rigid, and it works well. In a chance of good luck, I've got the cowl vent there. I'm going to have enough clearance in here, but look where the handle sits, right between the components. So all I'm going to do is, off the left hand side of this handle, I'm going to weld a shaft off that and bring it out just past this console frame, and then I don't know, either put some heat shrink over that and just use that, or I can still I can turn it 90 degrees and bring it out closer to the face of the dash so that it's in line with the dash, but I couldn't have got luckier if I tried. That's going to go in. I've got plenty of clearance here. I'll give you a look at this. I'll just turn this torch off on my phone so that doesn't drain my phone. Yeah, it's a pretty shoddy video tonight, sorry guys. But yeah, the handle, yeah, the lever, the handle, whatever you want to call it, it sits right down between the two components. So that's gonna go in there. As you can see, this vent, I've epoxied a piece on there. I did epoxy it along here, but hasn't hasn't quite taken there. It may have moved might have moved forward slightly when it was when I clamped it up. So all I'm going to do is just run a bead of silicone along there. But leaving that back flap on, as I said I was going to do, allowed me to put 2 screws through that and into the body of that duct. So that duct is actually held on by 4 screws. This piece here, I had to step it. I don't know why. Originally it had an extension on this piece here, so it was longer, and those 2 used to bolt together, but bolt together further back here. The unit doesn't seem twisted. It's all sitting nice, and it can only go as far as the bands will allow it, and they're all sitting in there nice. There's a good seal on them. So I don't know what the deal was with that. This one definitely sat in front of this one. It didn't sit behind it, but I notched that out, and that's come up all right too. One thing I love using for marking stuff out is just like correction pen, whiteout, liquid paper, whatever you want to call it. It's great because it just scrapes straight off. It doesn't leave a permanent mark on there. But everything's good, guys. Everything's turned out really well. There's the bulkhead there. I haven't done any welding here today because, as I said, I had to go and get tyres for my partner's car, and she sort of just dragged the day out as women do, and I didn't get back home until very late, so I didn't get a chance to do much. But the circle I cut out of here for this bigger pipe, I welded that in this afternoon. Just sort of tacked it in. I haven't finished it. It's still got to have like tack in there, tack in there, tack in there. But I just got it in place, just to fill the hole above this little bulkhead. So, that plug that. So that's worked out good. So my air conditioning is very close now to being finished. I know all the controls work as I want them to, not as they were originally set up to do. And the only difference is that now, rather than the windscreen vents coming out of their own vent, they're going to share the vent with the dashboard vents. They're just going to use the same chamber, and that's the only difference. Everything else works and runs through the correct chamber that it did when it was in the Festiva. So that one modification's just sort of cleaned things up a little bit. One thing I've noticed is my steering column turned out great. When the dash is in, the steering wheel surround it's spot on. You couldn't get it better. Couldn't get it better if you tried. But the steering wheel is slightly off center. It's sort of more out on the left hand side and in a little bit here. So I do have to do a little notching down there for the steering shaft, which isn't much, it's just a little nick. But what I'm also going to do is, in this red bracket that I made, I'm going to elongate the holes on these. There's another 2 bolt holes in the back here. So on these 4 holes, I'm going to elongate them and move it to the left. I thought about grinding off the bracket and moving the bracket over, but nah. It can stay where it is. The angle's right. I don't want to stuff it up. I'll just elongate the holes in that bracket and move it over. But yeah, everything's rigid. That unit is all one piece now. I had trouble trying to get the conduit or flexible tubing for the dash vents, so I'm going to go up to one of the local wrecking yards tomorrow and have a bit of a scavenge through there. I need a couple of other bits and pieces. Me partner doesn't know that yet, but she needs some stuff for her car, so I'm going to try and use that as my way to get myself up to that wrecking yard. So, but yeah, everything's turned out well. I'm very surprised, to be honest, completely surprised that it's worked as well as it did. I'm glad that longer cable worked. I didn't have to modify it at all. Looks like the cowl vent's going to go in, no problem. All the ducting that I epoxied up, or cut all the panels I put in and covered up the old holes, that's worked out well. The bracketry, the plastic bracketry to hold that in place has worked out well, and the way the control panel sits inside that heater box has worked out extremely well. That was my biggest concern, because yeah, as I said, you can't modify that. So if I was able to get the entire unit in there but couldn't use the control panel, I'd have to look at doing something completely different. Doesn't mean I couldn't use it, but it means I would have had to have got all new cables built to be able to reach the positions I needed them to go, and then I would have to most likely mount it in this bottom channel. I think probably would go in there, but then again it might not. I haven't tried a CD player in there yet, but I'm not really bothered, because as you know, with CD players, they have usually once you've got the CD player in there, on most modern ones, the face clips off, but then you have a surround that goes around it, so they usually stick out further than the console anyway, the insert. So you know, it wouldn't matter if it stuck out a little bit more. It wouldn't be a major drama there. CD player is not a priority thing for me in the truck, but no, I think it's going to fit, which is great. Tomorrow, I can't really tell you what I'm going to do, because I don't know how long my partner's going to keep me out. You know, she wants to do the partner thing, so I don't think she sort of understands the concept of building hot rods. She likes to ride in them, but she doesn't understand that it takes somebody to build them. So she doesn't understand it takes time and a lot of hours, and that person is me, you know, for her enjoyment and my own of course. You know, I have to put the hours in on the truck, and you know, I sort of had that chance over the last 9 months to do that, and I'm making the most of it, because I'm going to have to return to work shortly, probably another month and a half. My shoulder is getting better. We're making some good progress there at the physio, at the hospital. So it's taken roughly about the same time as it took my right shoulder to recover. That took me 9 months before I could go back to work with that. This one's, as I said, we're on about 7.5 months now, so probably take about 9 months as well. Poor work, they thought I was only going to be off for a maximum of 3 months. But it's been leave without pay, so they've been good enough to hold my job. You know, I haven't got paid for that time off, but you know, yeah, I'm just grateful that they've held my job for me, which is good of them. They didn't have to. But the one thing I did tell them when I started there 5 years ago was that I would have to go in for shoulder surgery eventually. So they sort of had 4.5 years notice, and they had plenty of time to train somebody to do my job, and they didn't. And yeah, so they've been struggling for the last 9 months to try and get everything out the door, but yeah, 9 months I haven't had to worry about it, so all's good. So yeah, I'm going to have to go back to work in about a month and a half, so I'm just plugging away with the truck, and everything I do, as I said, it's tinkering. There's no real heavy lifting or anything here, so no one's going to come banging on the door going, you're lifting that. I'm not lifting anything. I'm lifting light stuff, so and it's all mostly with the right hand anyway, because I'm right-handed, so all's good. Yeah, I won't ramble on for too much longer because this is 16 minutes already, but yeah, I'll hopefully have something to show you tomorrow. Cheers, guys. Hi everyone. It's been an exciting day. It's only sort of just started, but it's been an exciting day. I actually, as I mentioned in the last, I'm not sure I mentioned in the last video, but it doesn't matter anyway. Anyway, Sunday, so 2 days ago, I went to the local wrecking yard. Went looking for a few parts for my SUV, just a couple of little covers and things like that. And I was going in there to also look for some ducting to finish off the air conditioning unit. Well, obviously I couldn't find anything old enough that ran flexible round ducting, so I did a round of all the auto parts stores. Surprisingly, nobody, and I mean nobody, keeps it. God knows why. It baffles me. But I managed to find a supplier in Hong Kong. Again, I love the Asian countries, they're great. It's very flexible concertina type ducting. It's 1 metre long, it's silicon. $14 delivered. Can't complain. Awesome. So, and it's a lot more flexible than this plastic stuff here. Oh, it's probably the same flexibility as this. This is a very thin, light plastic, so it's probably got the same flexibility as that, which is exactly what I needed. So that all worked out really well. Also had a big score. As I said, I went to the wreckers on Sunday, and I went looking for an ashtray for this Studebaker console, because as you probably remember, I told you that the hinge was broken on this side. Well, I found 2 Studebakers in that wrecking yard on Sunday, and both of them were missing the ashtray. But one of them had a really good clean console in it, a lot cleaner than this one I've been working with, and I have scratched this up quite a bit. And because I took a little bit too much out of here, by the time I got that bulkhead cut out in the firewall and everything was able to shift forward, really here I could have left another 30 millimeters of material on there and then brought it down like that. So I wasn't happy with that, and the fact that I'd cut both the backs off this, I didn't really need to, not off this bottom one anyway. So all I needed to do was cut a piece off the right hand side and along the top, and then step it back out, and I could leave a piece here to add strength to that for when the CD player goes in. So the CD player would have supported itself, but I just want it to be a little bit more rigid, and I was missing a couple of clips. I've lost them over the years, but I've got them now because there's my replacement console. So I managed to pick this console up, and I managed to pick up, and this is one thing I should have done when I stripped out this old Studebaker years and years and years ago, but I didn't. I had a handbrake which was chrome plated, and it had an internal adjuster from inside the cockpit area, you need to sort of adjust the handbrake up, and I thought, yeah, that's going to work really well. But unfortunately, it doesn't work too good with the back end of the Festiva console. So I decided I'm going to grab the Festiva handbrake as well. Okay, nice and compact. It's black. It's not chrome plated, but to be honest, when it's in behind the console, the only bit you see is that bit there. Of course, the handle's going to be black, but all you see of the shaft is that much. So I'm not really fussed. I grabbed everything I could off it, all the electronics and the mounting plate, and even the cable. Probably cocked up with the cable a little bit. What I should have done is actually got underneath the car, cut the cable from basically where the back axle would be. They're a front wheel drive, so they have like a tubular back axle set up on them. I should have cut it from there, and then what I should have done is pulled all the cable through the outer casing to have more cable, but I didn't. I sort of realised that on the way home. But the thing is, I got this, I got this this zinc plated part of the handbrake, and a cable manufacturer can easily remove this little piece here and install a new cable into that fitting. I've had it done before. As long as you got the fittings, the cable's the easy part for the cable manufacturer. So yeah, so I scored the console and the handbrake for $40. So it charged me $20 a piece. I'm happy with that because it's going to fix my problems, But being, well, not always, but sometimes I'm a little bit sneaky. I've got in that little bag there, I do have a secret compartment. So, as getting back to my story before it strayed onto this console, I walked past another car this morning, and I did. It's like literally like in the movies. I walked past it and I stopped and I paused, and I had thoughts going through my head, and I turned around and I looked at it and thought, hang on, that's a Festiva. It was missing so many body panels that basically it was just a shell. And I looked inside it, and lo and behold, there was an ashtray. And it's not broken. So this thing's got to get wrapped in cotton wool. So I've managed to source the console out of one car, source this out of another car, and yeah, I've got the consoles. You can see how much I took out of it. It's a really shallow angle there, and then I've really gone down there. I don't need to go as far as that now. So yeah, I've got another console to do all the modifications and get that looking really, really nice around that heater box area. One other thing I got that I didn't take out of that Festiva years and years ago, for the back part of this console, this little insert comes out of here, and down in the bottom, that's where your screw goes. Now you could have really put anything underneath it to put a screw into there, but I actually pulled the right mount out. I pulled the mount out of the Festiva, so obviously gets screwed to the floor, and that screw in the console goes in there. So that's lovely. I'm wrapped. I've managed to score a few things, which is just going to make the whole installation a lot easier. I've got the correct handbrake for the correct console. Oh, and the other thing that I was missing was this little cap, and the Festiva that I pulled this from this morning had already had the back part removed on it. It was still in the car. It had been thrown into the back seat. I don't know why it was removed, but it was thrown into the back seat, and it was missing this little cap, and I was looking all around the carpet thinking, oh, this cap's got to be somewhere. Got to be somewhere, surely, because the car was in really, really good nick. Whoever had this car looked after it, but it had been sideswiped on the driver's side, and that's the only reason it ended up becoming a write-off and ended up in the wrecking yard. But it's absolutely immaculate. The seats were as good as my seats. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful condition inside. So I thought, where the hell is this little cover for this handbrake console opening? I thought, I'll check in the glove box. I opened up the glove box, there it was. So obviously the person that had previously owned the car, this thing had fallen off. They didn't know where it was from, because it's extremely easy to miss if you're sitting in the driver's seat, because the handbrake sort of covers it. So they probably didn't realise, they weren't car savvy, you know, they didn't know much about cars obviously, and they've just thought, oh, this has got to be off my car, I'll put it in the glove box till I work out where it came from. So it was in there. So I scored that as well, which is nice. So I like having all the little bits. If it was meant to have it, I like to have it. And it was the same thing on my SUV, where the nuts go on to hold the windscreen wipers onto the spindles. There's some little rubber caps that go over those nuts to sort of make it all nice. Well, I was missing both of those. No, sorry, I was missing one of those on the passenger side, and I managed to get both the driver's side and passenger side from the wreckers. So, you know, now it all looks nice and clean and the way it's supposed to have looked when it came out of the factory. So that's good. So yeah, I'm going to wrap this in bubble wrap. This will come up really nice once I put some armour all on it. I know it will. It's just that it's been sitting in a wrecking yard for God knows how many years. Scared to death of breaking it. But yeah, this one's got a different cigarette lighter in it. Not that I need it, because as I explained, I'm going to put one of them USB port things inside here. Cup holder's all good. This is just a cleaner unit, this one, so all good. I'll continue to use this whilst I'm doing my mock-ups now. So this will be my my prototype, or whatever you want to call it. And this one's going inside. I'll give it a clean. It's a little bit dusty and dirty, and that one will get wrapped in some plastic. You see the dirt there coming off it. Get wrapped in some plastic, and that'll get put away in my storage cupboard in that back room of the house, ready to go in the car. I did scratch it a little bit here trying to get it out, but I'm pretty sure that I can do a little bit of magic there. But the actual seat, where the seat sits anyway, that'll be covered, and it's on the passenger side, so I don't have to look at it. Beautiful. So yeah, very excited. Another thing that I did was on Sunday, when I went to the wreckers, I bought a set of these lights. Now you might say, why do I need these lights on a 1936 Studebaker? Well, the Studebaker originally was 6 volt, as most of you will know, and you can't put a H4 halogen globe into it because the holes are all different. Now there's been quite a few videos come up from both Australia and America on how to convert your original headlight buckets by either by using these metal backed lights, or it can be done out of plastic. It just depends how good you want to do it, and obviously if you've got the tools to do it, because both methods vary a little bit. But there's an Aussie guy, his video was posted about 6 or 8 years ago, managed to find it, and he shows you how to do this. So basically what you do is you get felt tip marker, and right where this peaks, you draw a circle around there, get the angle grinder, chop that off. He said too, when you get the light, get it complete. Get the boot and get the globe, because just a H4 halogen globe here in Australia is worth $17 just for the goddamn globe. Can't believe how much they've gone up over the years. They skyrocketed. Used to be able to buy them for $6. But yeah, they're $17 a piece now. So just in those two lights, that cost me $30 for the pair, complete with all the stuff on it. If I was to go and buy the globes, it would have cost me $34. So he said, yeah, get all the boots, make sure you get all the clips and the globes and all that sort of stuff with it. So that's what I did. I got all that, and yeah. So what you do is you cut that out. You just keep that off cut and dispose of the rest. And then what you do on your headlight bucket, I really don't have anything to demonstrate here, but it's probably not even worth trying to demonstrate it to you. But what you got to do is when you tip it over on its back like that, you skim across the top of it with the angle grinder, and you take that little opening out that was for the 6-volt globe, and then what you do is you prep the headlight bucket surface, and you prep this part here that you cut out, and basically what you do is solder, or I know a lot of Americans say solder. We say solder. I know the English say solder, but yeah, so you solder or you solder this part you've cut off onto the original headlight bucket, and then take it off to the chrome platers and get it chromed, get it electroplated. One thing I did mess up on, and I didn't know this until I got home and I was spewing. It does have the provisions in it here for the parking globes, but I think at one time one of these, I'd say this light was replaced. This one's a lot heavier. It's got some little tabs on here. This one doesn't. I honestly didn't notice it in the wrecking yard because it's still got the same boots on it and had the factory terminals on it. The only thing that sort of gave anything away was this, but you know, you could always have a broken wire. As you can see, they're in different spots. One's up here, and this one's obviously here in the middle. So what I'm going to do is I am going to drill. Okay, I've now got the heater box out, guys. So this is what we've ended up with. I blocked this in across the front with some epoxy, so that's all been epoxied up. As you can see here on the fan motor, I mentioned that I took a little bit out of the corner here at the start to try and avoid the cowl there, but I've taken that bit more out because this flap will stay locked in that position now. As you can see, I've locked that with a cable tie. This was to draw fresh air in through the pelham. But obviously I don't have one on this, so I can't draw fresh air in through the car. So I cut a big hole in here and put a vent in there, which I'm not going to do. So we've eliminated that, so that got rid of that long cable, and that long cable was able to be used on this side to operate this one mechanism, but for all the different stages that it needed to go through, for changing from dash to floor. And that's basically all I got now, because when it blows out of the demisters for the windscreen, it will blow out through the dash vents as well, because they're all running in this one chamber. as I told you, the dash vents, when I get the flexible conduit that I'm going to use, that's going to go straight to the vent in the dash, same on the other side, and then through here I'm going to drill a hole, and those little vents there, which will be for the windscreen, will be mounted in through there and will run up to the windscreen. So they'll share the same control on the switch panel, and they will share the same ducting on the switch panel, so on the unit. This part here, if you remember, I thought I was going to have some interference with the cowl vent going back in, so I trimmed that down, but I left this back flap on here, and that gave me something to put a couple of screws into to hold this in place. On the front side, those original two pieces that I did cut out, I've used them to fasten the front down. So I can basically pick this whole unit up as one piece now. I've put all those screws in around the bands, which has locked all the components in as one. I think at the start I just mentioned that I'd cut a little bit more out of that for the controls, heater controls, but as you can see, that's for the floor vents, so that doesn't really interfere with anything. I haven't cut into this chamber where the heater core is. So this has all worked out really good, guys. First ever shot at it, had no real advice on how to do it, but I think it's turned out pretty good. I think I mentioned this in one of the other videos. This plastic bracket here, it used to bolt up further back here. The bolt used to be about here. Now, don't ask me how that was. I've still got a piece that broke off this back bit, and the hole lines up where my finger is. But it doesn't make sense, because the band is the width of the band, and that band seals the two units together. So what I had to do is I had to actually step this here to be able to put the bolt through. That's worked fine, no issues. To get everything a little bit more compact as well, I was able to shove the units right into the bands so that the units were almost hard up against each other. So I just had to take a couple little notches out of certain spots. So one there, and I don't know, I think there was one here, and I think there's one just under here. But yeah, as you can see, I've got it screwed all around on both sides, so it should all be good. Like, that's one nice solid unit. It's easy to put in too, guys. If I ever have problems with it, it's just a matter of taking the 4 bolts out of the dash, 2 bolts that hold the tin structure in. I call it the tin structure because it's only really light gauge shit on the side. The tin structure that comes out with 2 bolts, and then that whole unit is only held in by 3 mounting positions, which is this one here, this one, and this one. I have to put a washer on that, as you can see. It's starting to pull through, but I couldn't see that from inside the truck. So yeah, and obviously I need a drain hose on here. So that's something I must remember to put on, otherwise I'm going to end up with a lot of water in the truck from the aircon unit. One thing I'm going to do is, firstly I'm going to find my torch so you guys can see what the hell I'm doing. Now, sorry for that. Now, in here, I quickly used that correction pen just to sort of mark around the tabs roughly. Like, I know it's what here, I can square that out with a ruler. And what I did is I just got an old wooden skewer that I had from kebabs. Yeah, I keep everything. I actually used it as a clean out tool on on a heater box on my missus's car on Sunday, so I sticky taped this onto the toothbrush to clean out the heater box. But what I did is I got that correction pen and I loaded the end up with some whiteout correction fluid, and through those tabs I poked this through, and I was able to get the dots marked out onto the firewall, so I know that now that's my points for my holes. But I'm not actually going to pull or put it's going to make a bit of a noise here. I'm not actually going to put bolts through the firewall. What I'm going to do, and I sort of mentioned this the other day, doesn't matter what size material I've got here, it's just for demonstration purposes. What I'm going to do is get a piece of tube like this. I'm going to pre-drill the hole. I'm going to tap it, and then I'm going to weld this on the inside here. So the air conditioning unit gets its spacer, but it screws into the tube, and then that way it'll leave the firewall nice and clean. So there'll be one there, there'll be one here, and there'll be one here. So that's going to be good. So like all these little tiny holes here can all get welded up. These bigger ones, no, not those. God, not those. That's for the heater core. No, the air conditioning outlets. But yeah, all the bigger ones, I probably will cut pieces out and graft them in, like I sort of did with this little bit here. You can sort of see that I just tacked that in from the front, just to sort of square this out for that bulkhead. So it's good. And I'm not sure if I mentioned it in the last video. I'm sort of getting confused with the last video I posted and the one that I filmed but deleted. It turns out that the cowl vent's going to go back in. The handle, it's got to be the most arsiest modification in the history of hot rodding. This cowl vent handle passes right between the two units, and it comes out right in line with the edge of this tin thing. With the console on it, of course, it comes out right in line here with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drill a hole in that handle. I'm going to weld a shaft in, and then I'm just going to put a piece of heat shrink on it and heat shrink that over the handle, and my cowl vent will actually work manually via the handle. You can see there I straightened the handle out the other day because that was bent towards the right hand side. It was bent here somewhere. Done a pretty good job straightening it out. Still a little kink there, I can see where it was bent, but geez, no one's going to notice that. So that's all going to go in again, which is beautiful. It was a dog of the thing to get out. There we go. So yeah, I get to retain that. I was going to buy, God, I can't think what model it was. It was a Ford, God, I think 32, but I could be wrong, because I think maybe the 32 Fords sort of came to a peak there, but it was one of those late 20 to early 30 Ford cowl vent gaskets to go in there, and I think it would fit. I would have had to have checked with the seller on the dimensions, because this is 14.5 inches by 4.5 inches, but the price they wanted for it, I nearly fell over. I couldn't believe it. So the rubber that I used on the door edges on my Chevy, that brown stuff, if you remember that from a couple of videos back, I'm just going to use that. It's weatherproof, it's rubber, and it's actually made for keeping water out. So you can either buy that in the rib type like I bought for that, because I want the water when it gets caught between the door rubber and the body, I actually want it to disperse. I want it to run down those grooves and run out the bottom, not get sort of trapped between there and then sweat and bubble the paint. But with this one, you can actually buy the non-rib one, the flat one, and it's only like $7 a packet. So I'm going to use that in here. It's going to work perfect. So let's have a look. Well, there's the heater control. As you can see, I've now got the bigger cable on the other side, and that operates everything beautifully. The only thing that now does not work on the front of this is the recycle and fresh air control. You can see it there, because it's been, excuse me, I've got hiccups today. It's been cable tied off on the unit itself, so it's not needed. It was perfect. Just popped the clips out, put the cable in. I did have to drill this hole a little bit bigger for some reason. See, this is actually using like a proper, whatever you want to call that, twisted, braided wire, where these ones were using more of just a single core wire. So the single core required a smaller hole than what this braided cable did. So I just drilled a little bit bigger hole and it went straight in. It was like the most easiest modification I've probably done on the truck. So I'm wrapped about that. I took some photos of the Festiva that was in the wrecking yard to try and work out how these mount. It turns out that there are, on the plastic dash, there is a little plastic mount, a little plastic mount that sort of sticks out off the dash here, because the dash pad would come off first before this bar would come out. But obviously I don't have a Ford Festiva dash pad in here, so I don't get that little mounting block. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get some light gauge steel like this. I'm just going to spot them on, and I'm going to just screw them straight to those little bits of tin. There's not a lot there, as you can see. It's sort of sitting right over. It's sort of sitting right over the edge of this lip, and there's probably not enough on here to put a screw into. So it's the same on this side. It's sitting beautiful and central, but it's just not enough. So if I weld a flat tab across there, it doesn't matter where I drill it. If it partly goes through the radius of this, or it goes into the flat of this, it doesn't matter, because it's going to have that tab on the front which the screw will bite into first. So yeah, I've got to do that. This also, I'm going to cut. I had this screwed into the heater box to hold the heater box from, obviously, this side of the unit. I'm going to cut this tab back now. I don't need it to be as long as that, and that will stick out past the console. So I'm going to cut that back, and I'm going to use this hole here. And when the console's fitted up, so this will actually come back. This will bend back. So when the console goes on, this won't even be seen. I've got another one on this side, but unfortunately I can't make it reach the heater box the way it is. So if I want to use this, I have to weld an extension on it. So I'm going to look at that in the next half an hour or so and see what I can do with this one. So yeah, all the little bits and pieces are getting done, which is really good. And these are all the things I had to do before I could really start putting all the framework in and start doing any body repairs because I don't want to go doing all the body repairs and welding the frame in and then realise, oh God, I can't get the aircon in. You know, got to make sure, you know, as rough as the body's sitting at the moment and flimsy and stuff, the firewall's really sturdy, so, you know, I can do the work I need to do on this cowl section because it is solid. And yeah, I've just about done everything I need to. You know, the steering column, I know where that's at. Heater unit, aircon, I know where that's at now. It all fits, it all comes out in one piece. It's very simple installation, very simple installation. Absolutely wrapped with it. So lucky. Alright guys, I'm going to keep sort of plugging along and see where I get to today and maybe pick up on... Alright, I got a little bit more done. I sort of started on the firewall because I needed to finish off welding in that patch panel. So any of the small holes that I had circled from a long time ago, I welded them up, and on the left hand side of the cab where I had that really bad split, I don't really have any access to get in with anything to bash it out. I can get, you can't really get in there because the dent is up the top here, and I had like a punch or a bar that I put into there, and I used a hammer to try and bash it out as much as I could, but I couldn't get enough angle to get to the real crucial spot. But it ended up actually coming out quite good. A drift, not a punch, drift. So I got these couple of drifts here that I used, and was able to knock it out. So I still had a little bit of variation there, and I've only just quickly gone over this. I had to change the I needed to change the flap disc, but I'm about to go inside because it's absolutely freezing, so I thought stuff it and I'll leave it till tomorrow when I'll clean the rest of it up. But what I did is basically from, like, the crack was running through there, I've got good penetration behind, lots of penetration behind, and what I did is just below the crack and over the crack, I actually ran beads of weld all the way up to here to fill in that that part that I couldn't get to, which is about here somewhere. So I've basically, this whole section is just made up of weld, and yeah, it should come up alright. There's a slight concave here. I'm not really worried about that. It looks like I should be able to get to it from here with the drift, but I can't because I've got this lip here on the side, and I'm not prepared to cut that off. So that one little dent there, I'm not particularly bothered. I can always put a little bit of filler in there or a little bit of lead or something to hide that. But the rest of it hasn't come up too bad. I've redone all the splits for a second time on the outside of this. I've still got to clean up along the seam here. It's a little bit high. I redid this one as well. Redid some more from the inside. You probably see the heat mark there. So I did a little bit more from the inside. Same here. I needed to just zap it quickly on the inside, but everything's come up pretty good. It all looks neat. Like the whole firewall's got to be, you know, at least it's flat now, so I can take the stainless steel. Do have to clean this hole up a little bit. I've got a little bit of weld that just sort of fell into the opening, so I'll just re-drill that. And as I said, I'm going to make some backing plates to go behind these so that when the bars go through the firewall, they won't end up ripping the sheet metal again. They shouldn't really have any flex now in this area by the way I'm going to design the cab mounts, and the fact that I'm actually putting them on proper rubber, putting this cab on proper rubber mounts now, so there shouldn't be as much vibration, and it shouldn't. Hopefully, it shouldn't split. But what I might do is I might weld something from here to this floor brace across here, just so that it can't pull. It'll be nice and strong. And even here, continue that on down to here, and yeah, so something across and something down, and just tighten up this corner. I can't unfortunately box that in because that's where my body fixing bolts need to be accessed from. So yeah, that's the way it goes on these old trucks. So, oh jeez, feel my age now with my knees. I'm going to call it quits for tonight. It's absolutely freezing out here. Don't know if you can see that. But I'm happy. I got a little bit of there's a little bit of warpage here. It's a little high here, a little low here. I'm going to do something inside to try and straighten that out again. I cut all of my mounts to go behind the tabs on the air conditioning unit. I can't show you at the moment because it's actually in the truck, but I've got those all marked out, so I will drill and tap those tomorrow and then weld them to the firewall. I didn't want to try doing anything with the firewall with this high here and this low until these go in, because I'm going to add more heat to it. It's unfortunate, but you know, it's not too bad considering. You know, I've had to put a lot of heat. Into this. I've tried to keep it as cool as I possibly could when welding, but yeah, you know, it's an old cab, so you know, probably had a twist in it anyway. By this, you know, we know that was split and how badly twisted that was, and I've pulled that out now, and you know, it's not as good as this side, but it's a hell of a lot better than it was. I don't know if you can see it. This flap that goes around the corner, I need to sort of hit it in the top corner here. I just got to sort of push that in, but I don't want to start pushing this section in either. So I've got to be careful. Sometimes it's better to leave it than to start bashing it, because once you start bashing it, you split welds, and that's one thing I don't want to do. I don't want to start splitting all the stuff that I've welded up. So, yeah, we're getting very near to having done everything I needed to do on this firewall. As you can see, there's a hell of a lot less holes in it than there was when I first started. So that's good. Probably got I've got two here that I've got to fill. That's on a real thick, heavy section of steel, so no problems with that. As well as this, I can basically just weld those up. This one I'm going to need to make a plate for this, along with this, and this. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plates to make, and 2 holes that I can just weld up, and I'll be done here. There's nothing else that really needs to pass through the firewall. there's going to obviously be the loom from the engine bay and headlights and things like that, but I don't think it's going to be coming through the firewall. I think it will be entering the cab from under here somewhere. I haven't quite worked that out yet. I have a plan. I have a plan for my fuse box and all that sort of stuff, and the fuse box is actually going to be mounted just in here behind the driver's seat. And what I want to do is on the subframe of the floor, okay, on this side, I want to weld a round tube or fasten a aluminum tube to this with a 90-degree on it at both ends, so when it comes up through the floor, there'll actually be an aluminum tube coming up through the floor, and the wires or any of the wiring will be all concealed in that tube, so it'll be out of the weather, but it'll run underneath the floor, so it'll be actually on the outside of the cab but encased within a tube, and both ends come up through the floor pan, so there's no way water can get in there. I haven't quite worked out how I'm going to route all the wiring from the engine bay and the lights and stuff into that tube yet from the front, but the back's easy. I just got to, when I put the aluminium floor pan in, I just got to drill a hole in the floor pan and the tube comes straight up through it, so that's easy. I'm leaving it here for now because I'm freezing cold. I'm going inside, going to make some dinner, and yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Here's another hole here, and I'm going to move this one down here, and I'm going to fill this. Actually, I don't need to fill it because that will actually go over the outside. That will go over the outside of the original headlight bucket. So, as you can tell, I'm still working this out as I'm filming this. I haven't even had time to think about it. The last couple of days it's just been so chaotic with the missus. Ugh. What can I say? But yeah, so yeah, I won't need to move it because yeah, these will obviously get relocated anyway. So that's all good. It's all good. I'm happy now. I'm relieved. Thank God. But yeah, that was another little thing that I picked up on the weekend. As you can see, there's the original buckets. It was out of a Ford Courier Ute pickup, whatever you want to refer to it as. So yeah, now I'm gonna actually I won't shut the camera off yet. I've got to do a couple of little things here because I want to continue this video, and I want to show you how all the air conditioning box openings that I was going to make redundant, how I've glued all the covers in and everything like that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you that when I've pulled it out of the truck. I did a video prior to this where I tried to show you in the truck. I didn't post that one. I watched it back and it was I did it at night and it was a little bit hard, so but I can give you a look at what I got sitting in there at the moment, minus the console, because I've just pulled that out to show you the difference between the two. But we'll go in and have a look. So this all sits really nice here now. Hopefully you can see in there, it's not too dark. I cut a little bit more out of the top here. This is the heater box, and this is only the chamber for the floor outlets, so it's no biggie at all. Doesn't affect the unit whatsoever. I've just sat the steering wheel back in. As you can see, I altered that dropper bracket, and this is sitting beautiful now up against here. The only thing I need to do is bring it over a little bit to centralize it, The wheel on the left hand side sticks out a little more than the left because it's got a slight twist in it. I do have to take a little bit out of the front here, just in this corner. You can see there it's catching. It doesn't need to catch. I could move this over and it won't affect the steering linkage whatsoever, but in order to keep everything square in the truck, I think taking it just from this well, probably from this weld point just across here, just taking this little piece out will be much better, and also to elongate the holes in this dropper bracket to be able to push it to the left. So I get a little bit of right movement down at the base, and I get a little bit of left movement up the top here from the dash, and that will bring it perfectly into line. And as I was mentioning, I was talking about the air conditioning vents going in. I was going to put it here, but when the steering wheel comes over a bit more, I might be able to centralise the vent here and use that outer edge of that hole to start the hole I need, and that is actually more in line with my face there than it is if it was mounted over here. So yeah, so I'm going to shut this down for now because it's been going for 21 minutes already. I'm going to pull the dashboard out, and I have to remove the aircon unit today anyway because I want to finish the welding off on that patch panel I put in on the firewall, and I'll pick up from there. Cheers guys, thank you. Pick up on the video a bit later. Cheers guys, thanks.